All right, so today we're gonna focus on thoracic rotation and anything to do with the spine. So for equipment, what you're gonna need is some sort of dowel, hockey stick, golf club, or something that's stiff, kind of like my mobility stick, be able to get into our rotation. And then either a yoga mat, yoga block, or something of that nature. So what we're gonna do to get started is some breathing. And we're gonna be laying down on our backs, one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. We're gonna aim for 5 deep breaths where we're expanding into that bottom hand only and nothing up top here, so we can work that diaphragm. So let's follow along. Nice deep breath in and exhale. Let that diaphragm just kind of fall into the ground, and inhale again and exhale. Now a few at your own pace. Aim for one more deep breath. Perfect. From there, we're going to get started with some thoracic T-spine cars. So with this one, what we're gonna need you to do is you're gonna grab a yoga block. You're gonna be in a tall kneeling position. In this position, I want you to dig your toes into the ground and not have them flat. The reason behind this is when you have your toes digging in, you'll have better control and activation of glutes and hip extension to lock out lumbar spine. The goal is not to lock it out completely. We just want minimal movement so we can focus more on the thoracic spine in our car. So in this position, your knees are going to be a little bit wider than hip width. And when we're in this position, you want to stay in hip extension and not fall into this position, because you're going to end up doing weird things with your spine when we go through. With the block, you're going to kind of cross the arms and you're going to have your fingers kind of interlaced with the block itself. What we're going to do here is pull it to create some tension and also round our shoulders. The reason behind that is when we can move our shoulder blades around forward a little bit more, then we get more motion through our spine and not so much shoulder blades kind of getting in the way. So we're going to grab, pull, round, and from here I want you to think of going down into that mini crunch. You're going to rotate to the right or left as far as possible. From here, you're going to do a little tilt into lateral flexion. From this tilt, you're going to make your way into extension over to the other side, nice and slow, and then mimic lateral flexion, that little tilt, and then coming back forward into flexion, and then we're going to reverse it. So this is our thoracic spine car that we're working on. And there is going to be a little motion through the lumbar spine. There's not a lot that you can do to prevent it. It's naturally going to happen because our spine is one gigantic piece that kind of falls along with the domino effect. When one domino goes, another one will go with it. So we're trying to limit the lumbar spine motion, but you're just going to get a little bit regardless. As long as it doesn't look like this, where your hips and lumbar spine are going with the rest of your spine and you're just focusing on the top portion, then we're okay. So nice deep breaths as we go through, moving that spine, getting it prepped and ready for all the fun stuff that we're going to do today. And just breathe as we go through. If you find this one awkward, it's pretty common for a lot of people doing T-spine cars for the first time. It's kind of all over the place and we don't really have the grasp of the motion. But in time, you'll kind of build a better connection from brain to the muscles involved around the spine to move in the way it's designed to go. So we're gonna aim for one more per side so I can stop talking and we can get into the good stuff. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is some quadrupedal cat cows that's going to work each vertebrae interdependently. So in a perfect world, every vertebrae that stacks on top of each other should move by itself by about 13 millimeters. A lot of people are disconnected from their actual spine, so a lot of times it goes into chunks or there's some shakiness. So we're gonna try to segment our spine one vertebrae at a time. So what we're gonna do from here is you're gonna go onto your hands and knees, and we're gonna go into the big rounded position. In this position, we're gonna start at the tailbone, and I want you to think of, again, one vertebrae unraveling at a time until we get all the way into this position. And then from here, we're gonna come down with the head, up with the shoulders, upper back, mid back, low back, tailbone follows. So this should be kind of like a beautiful wave of your spine. I highly recommend you have a mirror around you so you can actually see what your spine is doing. And take your time. Don't feel like you need to rush, because a lot of times your brain is going to be sending a signal to do the motion, but you might not actually be moving, and you might almost feel lost in time and space, which is completely normal. So let's do a couple to get that motion. So starting in the big rounded position, and now tucking that tailbone up towards the ceiling, arching that low back, working that mid back, getting that chest towards the ground, reaching our head up towards the ceiling. From here, head comes down. Nothing else is moving, it's just the head, still the head. Now think of getting those shoulder blades pushing up towards the ceiling. Mid back, low back, tailbone follows. Nice and slow. We're gonna do a few more. Try to breathe and really connect the motion to what's happening inside your head as we go through. Still breathe. Still go nice and slow. If you have a mirror around, see if you're actually segmenting. See if there's any funny, weird stuff happening at the lower back, mid back, upper back. Also, you might find even some painful spots, and the big thing that I want you to focus on is if you find pain, don't try to push through it, because your nervous system will remember that area being painful, and it's then going to want to shut down the area and prevent you further from regaining access to that tissue to actually move your spine. So if pain is present, work around it. Try not to go into full extension. Try to make a smaller motion with those segments of your spine. Aim for one more. Breathing. Prepping our spines for the rest of this workout. And good. So what we're going to do next is find ourselves a dowel or our hockey stick or whatever we have at home. So what we're going to try to do is work on rotation of our thoracic spine. So what we're going to do is try to get into a kneeling position like this, or you can start in a tall kneel position and then drive your hips back. So I'll show you on kind of a 45-degree angle what we're going to try to achieve. The dowel is going to be on your left side from here. From there, you're going to grab both hands onto your dowel, hockey stick, whatever you have. And the hand positions, I don't really care at this point, because all we're trying to focus on is getting rotation through our thoracic spine. And if this feels better compared to this, then you just go with that. All I want you to focus on is that rotation. So holding that dowel to your left side in whatever hand position feels comfortable, you're gonna then start pushing your hips back, kind of like if you're about to deadlift. And then this is gonna start taking your whole torso to rotate you to your left. And as you get to the bottom, if you don't feel any kind of stretch or pull anywhere, that's where you can untuck your toes. So we're sinking our hips back until we get that rotational piece of our T-spine rotation. Once you find a stretch, and I'm gonna change up the angle, we're gonna end up holding this for our 2-minute mark. So as we're holding this for 2 minutes, I want you to deep breathe, Leah. breathe deeply, just like how we did in our little warm-up sequence. So big breaths through the diaphragm as we're holding this, and try to relax into this position. And we're gonna end up doing our PAILs and rails. So how our PAILs and rails is gonna work in this one is when I tell you to go, you're gonna drive the dowel into the ground at 10%, then we're gonna go to 30, 50, and then max effort. After that, we'll let go and kind of get deeper into the stretch. Once we find that deeper stretch, we're gonna relax there for a little bit, and then we're gonna do our rails contraction, where I want you to think of lifting the dowel off the ground, which is not gonna happen, because if I'm in my end range and I try to lift, it's not gonna go anywhere, but I'm just trying to get more rotation on the regressive side of the tissue that we're trying to attack. So for right now, for the next minute or so, as I check my watch, we are breathing deeply. Another question I get a lot when we hold any kind of PAILs and rails position is, where should I feel it? And it really depends on the individual where their most line of tension lies. For me, when I'm holding this position, I'm getting a lot of like mid-back where I should feel being stretched out. But for a lot of people who are tight all over the place, they might feel stuff in their arm, kind of around the lat, which is fine, because sometimes you need to go through that kind of stuff first before actually the tissue that you're trying to target. Deep breaths. The other thing here is that your head and neck don't feel great holding this position because you are holding it for a prolonged time. You can always grab a yoga block and place it for your head as like a little pillow to prevent any kind of strain on the neck. Timer. Alright, so in 3 seconds we're going to think of driving this dowel down into the ground at 10% effort. And start pushing. 10%. Now go to 30, 50, and now max effort. Drive, break the floor, drive. In 3, 2, 1, ease off. See if you can get deeper into the stretch by either reaching the arms higher or rotating your torso further. And when I tell you to go, we're going to try to lift this dowel up towards the ceiling, which is going to be impossible. And go. Try to lift. Keep lifting in 3, 2, 1, and relax. Alright, from there, we're going to go to the other side right away, because we're going to end up doing a lot of rotational stuff after this. So I'm going to give you a different angle from this side. I'll check my timer, and we're coming across like this. And again, hand position, doesn't matter what you do, it's whatever feels most comfortable and where you get that stretch. And again, you can use that block for your head to rest. And deep breaths. The other thing to know about PAILs and rails is that as we kind of gauge, starting at that 10% effort, if we get to a percentage of say 50% and that feels enough, you don't have to go to max effort where you're trying to burn a hole into the floor with this stick. Because sometimes when people get to that percentage and they might not be ready at a tissue level, they actually might do more harm than good. So you need to be able to self-regulate how much tension and torque you're putting into your tissues, because at the end of the day, you just need to find just enough stimulus to create change at a cellular level and not go beyond that. Deep breaths. About 40 seconds before we start driving this dowel into the ground at 10% effort. So you almost want to think of doing this motion, this rotational motion into the ground, and then your rails is just the opposite. So it's kind of like if you were swinging a baseball bat or a hockey stick or something like that, where we're working that rotational motion. All right, 20 seconds, and we're going to start driving this dowel down at 10%. 3, 2, 1, and start pushing down. 10%. Go to 30, 50. And max effort. Drive. And he's off. And when I tell you to go, we're gonna try to lift this guy up. And go. Lift. Lift everything you got for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Alright, slowly come out of that. Oof, that was a lot. Alright, let's move our block out of the way. We're gonna go back into a tall kneel position. So if the knees are not happy in this position, put a yoga mat, roll the yoga mat in half, or use a little foamy like this.